I'm going to talk about black teens being shot by police officers. And what I'm going to say is going to be shocking. And it's going to be supported by facts. The media often reports that a police officer has shot and killed a black teen. And there's an outcry. Another black teen shot. And you got people like Colin Kaepernick who protests, and others protest, and it causes problems. You know, people become angry. People refuse to participate. They say that the nation is racist. The NFL loses advertisers. They lose money. They lose viewership. People say hateful things on Twitter or on YouTube. When the media is inciting problems, they're inciting violence, they're inciting discord is the word I like to use. And the fact of the matter is, I read the news. And when I read the news, it's, oh, some black teen got shot over here, blah, blah, blah. I know that there's spin, there's fake news. I've known about it for years. And I said, well, I want to read all the details. I want to know exactly what happened. And I read about Ferguson, Chris Brown, Freddie Gray, list goes on, you know, Trayvon Martin. I read all the witness statements. I look for 911 transcripts. 911 transcripts and witness statements is pretty much all you need to use. If there's video evidence, there's no case. And if there's photographic evidence, there's no case. But when you get to the witness evidence, usually that's enough to tell the story about what really happened. The police officer tells their side of the story. And then there's the friend of the black teen who tells his side of the story. Always supports his friend. And then you've got the witnesses. And the media tells their side of the story, which is basically, you know, black teen got shot, it's racist, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What happens when I read the court cases, witness testimony for independent witnesses, means not the friend of the guy, not the other police officer. Almost, in fact, every case that I've researched, the witnesses defend the police. The witnesses live in black neighborhoods where the black teen was shot, and the witnesses are black. And in many cases, there's multiple witnesses. And these witnesses say that these black teens were assaulting the police, threatening the police, were intending to use a weapon against the police, or had already used violence against the police, etc. Often, these teens had criminal records. In almost every case, they had criminal records. And these teens are not people, these teens are usually bullies. They're people that when you look at them, they're not short, thin, underweight. They're big, strong, tall, bulky guys, muscular. These guys have the description of a bully. Often, they're in the process of committing a crime or recently committed a crime. And when you hear, oh, well, the judge has some unsealed evidence, that unsealed evidence is the criminal record, because you cannot admit previous crimes into a present case. You can't say, well, did he do a previous crime? Not admissible in court. It is admissible in the media. And then after the case, well, it ends up he had a long history. It comes out after the court case is over, well, he had a long history of criminal activity. So with Chris Brown, he's a perfect example. The guy he punched the police officer while the police officer was asking him to please walk on the sidewalk in a city. It's dangerous to walk in the street. So Chris Brown went and punched him in the face. And the police officer later, a short time later, the witness testified that Chris Brown lunged at him, which led to the police officer shooting him. I believe that the police officer was injured in some way, but I don't really remember the whole deal. He had gotten out of the car. And in the court case, the prosecutors know what the evidence is. They know what the witnesses say. They know that all the independent witnesses side with the police. They know that the only witness that sides with the victim is the friend of the victim. Excuse me. I'm going to sneeze. They know that the police are innocent. However, there's a profit motive. If the prosecutor wins the case the prosecutor wants to become a judge, get paid more money. In order to become a judge, you have to run, you have to be voted and elected to be a judge. He needs his name to be recognized. He needs to be able to say, I put away this criminal. I protect the community. That's what he needs to do. He doesn't care if what he's doing is right or wrong. Lawyers and prosecutors and defense lawyers are judged on winning and losing, not whether or not they're making ethical decisions, not whether or not it's right or wrong. Okay, so I read the Chris Brown, I read the documents from the actual case, and there's a timeline of events that was created by the prosecution. And the witnesses give their testimonies, and they say where the police was and what time they believe it happened, and any evidence that they can, make a timeline. And when they did it, the two witnesses saw the moment that Chris Brown turned to lunge at the police officer when the police officer finally decided to shoot him. But when they wrote the timeline, they put the girl, I believe, was the independent witness. They put her testimony first, and they put Chris Brown's friend second. Chris Brown's friend said that Chris Brown turned and made a move. And that's all he said. He turned and made a move. Doesn't really imply violence. The other witness said he turned and lunged at the police officer, and the implication was that it was happening in a way that was threatening to the police officer, who had already been punched in the face by Chris Brown, who got shot. And maybe the officer was bleeding. Something about somebody got shot through a door, or Chris Brown was bleeding. I don't remember. I think the officer shot him through the door after getting punched. And what they also did in the timeline, even though they had the ability to properly display the timeline and to put these two witness testimonies at the same exact moment, because that is exactly what they were giving testimony for, they put the independent party's testimony as the last item on a page, and they put on the final page the testimony of the friend of Chris Brown, so it looks like it was the last thing that happened, but it wasn't. It happened at the same time as the other testimony, so it looked like, well, he just turned and made a move, and that's it. And it was something that they did to trick the jurors into thinking that the timeline was different than it really was. And I caught on to this. I said, this is not the proper way to produce a timeline. They're doing this to trick people. Now, Freddie Gray is an exception. Freddie Gray died, but there was actually a witness, and the witness, I believe, changed his testimony. He first said that Freddie Gray was acting crazy, intentionally bumping his head against the walls, and then he later retracted and said, no, I didn't say that. However, the issue with Freddie Gray is that the police improperly had him placed in the vehicle, and maybe he got a concussion when the vehicle was driving and nobody was monitoring what was going on. He wasn't shot by a police officer. I believe he was arrested and taken into custody improperly, like he wasn't seatbelted or something like that. And he may have fallen down and bumped his head or something like that. And I believe when the witness was saying, oh, well, he was acting crazy, he meant that Freddie Gray had suffered some sort of injury, a concussion perhaps, that caused him to be disoriented when he was in the van. So that was negligence. It wasn't somebody shooting a teen. And I don't remember the names of all the teens that I researched, but it had to have been like 4 or 5. Because after a point, you just stop reading it. You just stop researching it. These black teens get the sympathy of the news media and the general public, leading to the Black Lives Movement. The murderer by sniper of police officers, the negative impact on things like the NFL through protest, the Twitter people having accounts banned, and all sorts of other crazy things. Like Black Lives Matter, they interrupted a Bernie Sanders event, I believe, based on fake news. And when Colin Kaepernick says, and everybody says, I'm with Colin Kaepernick for standing up what he believes in, well, guess what? He believes in fake news. And so do you. And your government doesn't tell you the truth, and the media doesn't tell you the truth. They tell you what profits them, what they think is shocking. If a black officer shoots a white teen, they don't report it because people don't care. If they don't get ratings, they don't report it. I recall reading when I was much younger, maybe 1990, that black teens account for a fraction of crimes, like 15%, but are represented in the news media for crime 80% of the time. So they're not responsible for the majority of crimes, but they get the media coverage when they do commit a crime. And that is media bias. It's racism is what it is. It's fake news. Well, maybe that's not fake news. It has to be more than that to be fake news. But there's something wrong with the media. And the same is with the government. These are human beings. This is not like the government has holy people working there that follow magic rules and oh, we never do anything immoral. It's not true. It's just not true. So don't believe what the media says. Read the 911 transcripts. Read the independent witness statements before you make a decision about something that you hear. For example, in regards to a police officer shooting a black teen, they're all not true.